Welcome back, Mr. Barnack, and to all of you out there in YouTube land or wherever you might be seeing it from. How things?
Doing good.
Getting settled in the house?
Can sell in the house. A little
Do you want to give out
chilly.
your address so people can send you a housewarming gift?
It's in Batavia. Just send it to Batavia Post Office and put my name on it. Come pick it up.
Well, how about we dive into this? We're we're deep into this topic, and it's funny. I saw somebody was reading 10x is easier than 2x, and asked if they'd read the first two books, and they said there's two more books. I said, man, you want to 10x the meaning of 10x when you read that book. Read the first two first.
Yep.
Um, and so hopefully we're going to help you. Those of you that are following along, we're going to help you as we're helping ourselves, help you interpret and open your minds up and let your minds evolve to even greater and even more limitless possibilities. So, ultimately the goal here is freedom. And unless you're already financially independent with massive amounts of capital socked away that you're living off the interest from, you got to build a business to get there. And when we talk about a self-managing business, that means autonomy. That means autonomy to the people that you've engaged, to the who's that are working with you. And throughout all of this is conversation about how do you get there? And first and foremost, to review a little bit where we left off last time, it's a commitment to results, not to process. And we've got a quick statement here. Commitment is a statement of what is. It's not subjective. Results are not emotional. You can know what you're committed to by your results, not by what you say you're committed to. We're all committed at some level. We're all producing some sort of a result. And that result that you're producing, whatever it is proof of your commitment or lack thereof. So if you're,
Yeah.
yep,
What's
go ahead.
I was gonna say, what's the saying? Like your action speaks so loud I can't hear what you're saying.
Well, yeah. And in this case, the results of those actions, right? Now, if you
Yeah.
ultimately then truly want to create results, be committed to results, create freedom through the autonomy of a self-managed business, you have got to learn to start focusing on who and not how. And that's John spoke earlier and talked about a shift in our mindset. And I wanted to interrupt you there, but I didn't take the time to do so. It's not so much a shift as an evolution,
Hmm.
right? And extreme commitment will only arise out of clarity of vision and the autonomy to execute that vision in whatever way the who that you engage sees fit. You got to get out of people's way. Even that autonomy that you're entrusting them with is in itself important to them. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. Transformational leaders invest in their who's, whatever different form that may take. If you've got independent contractors, I say, especially then, it's just a little bit different form of investment, but invest in them, your time at a minimum, challenge them, help them clearly see the vision and their role and benefit from it. And ultimately, get your who's just as committed and invested as you are. And then get out of their way and watch them amaze you. But without clarity of vision, autonomy is not effective. People will meander. With clarity of vision, as well as consistent feedback on results, autonomy leads to high performance. Leaders should be committed to results, not to a particular process. Let the who figure that out. Rather than micromanaging the process, leadership should provide freedom and autonomy as well as extreme clarity and high standards of excellence. What's the culture that you're creating? What's it based on? Is it a championship culture? Um, I love the example of Jimmy Johnson that I use as far as this is not an asthma practice field. Go to the asthma practice field. Now, that sounds harsh, but he's establishing standards of excellence. So, who, not how, clarity of vision. And I love this transition, moving from a review to new content. If you have enough money to solve a problem, you don't have a problem. Now, so many leaders, though, are in their own way. They've got the money to solve the problem. They might look at it differently than that, but they get in their way. I'll get to that here in a second. But unfortunately, lessons are repeated until learned. So I thought, how many words is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words that say so much. And I love how they do, John, here in this book with all these stories. So now we're going to talk about Wes. And remember, lessons are repeated until learned, which another way is saying, how else might you say that, John?
Well, it's the old definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And the measure of intelligence, I think Ben Franklin said this, maybe some other really smart dude, Thomas Jefferson. The measure of intelligence is how quickly you can learn based on like if you're doing an activity and not getting a specific result, how soon do you change that activity that you're doing? Basically, how quickly do you learn, or how fast do you pick something up?
And so, here's what I had in my mind. You just replace one word, lessons, replace that with mistakes. Mistakes are repeated until learned, right? And so you're talking about Pavlov, or if somebody continues to slap you, how many times before you duck,
Yeah.
right? So Wes, yep, go ahead.
I was going to add to, and I love the if you have enough money to solve a problem, do you really have a problem? And I think the thing that I love most about building wealth or creating like these massive results that we're always talking about here and changing people's lives is really I'd sum it up with like money just gives you more options. And they say like money isn't really a like the root of all evil. Money is an exaggerator of who you already are. So if you're a good person, you become wealthy, typically you're going to just do really good things, right? As a wealthy person. So all those kind of like tie together in my mind. And I love that quote. I might write it somewhere, maybe on my wall or something. Like if you have enough money to solve a problem, you don't really have a problem. And or becoming wealthy just gives you more options, right? And things that you're able to do with your life.
Well, but this is also speaking to so many people get in their own way, right? And if you've got it, it may be a small problem at the beginning. It may be a VA type problem where you spend what do you spend on your VA, John? $4 or $5 an hour,
$4 an hour. Yeah.
right? So that's a relatively small amount of money that's going to perhaps solve a small problem. But what does solving that small problem do for you, John?
Frees up time. So then
Gives you
that way I
time to do
can
what?
the things that I want to
And or
do.
create more value, create more wealth, right?
Yep.
So Wes owned a risk management company.
Hmm.
And he sold that company ultimately in 2019 for a whole lot of money. However, and he's a really, really brilliant guy. Sometimes brilliant guys face the most challenges. But he nearly died 2 weeks
Hmm.
after selling the company. And that was because of some mistakes that he made when he had money to solve a problem, but didn't realize that he then therefore didn't have a problem. He took it on himself, right? And so I'm going to back up 2 years. Originally, Wes had gotten an unsolicited offer to buy his company. And he figured, I can handle this myself. I don't need a who. significant who to help me with this. Clearly, he hadn't read the E-Myth yet or any of these books that we're talking about. And so while focusing, again, can we multitask truly, John?
Called dividing focus. And the funny part about that, when I hear that, and I know it's a little bit of a different space or industry, but in the real estate world, what I hear is FISBO, right? Like, oh wait, I already have a buyer, or I can, I could find a buyer myself. Um, Talk about not having a significant who, right, to help you with one of the largest transactions of your life. But that's funny. Sorry, this popped into my head as you were sharing the beginning of that story, the correlation there between I call it some FISBOs over my time. So that's what rang true to me.
Well, and we're also going to go back to lessons are repeated until learned, right? So
Yeah.
Wes is focusing on negotiating this purchase. And since you can't truly multitask, what he wasn't focusing on were the results of the company, which
Hmm.
is what somebody is buying when they come make you an unsolicited offer. So the results of the company fell apart.
Hmm.
Suddenly, uh, the buyer withdrew their offer because it wasn't performing. The company wasn't performing anymore. We don't want to buy it now, simply because Wes was trying to handle the purchase and had taken his eye off of the company's performance. So lost that deal, went to back to work, got the company back into shape. However, and his intention was to sell it. And so when the company got back to where it needed to be, it had the value that somebody would again buy it. This time Wes wised up and said, no, I'm not going to do it myself. I'm going to stay focused on the value that's being purchased in the results from the company. And I'm going to hire an investment banker to handle he's a FISBO now going to hire a real estate agent, right? He's going to hire an investment banker to handle the transaction.
Oh.
Um, had he not done that, it would have, well, had he not done that, he might have made the same mistake again. But the point of this is this investment banker, the services rendered, and you think as a real estate agent, y'all get pushed back at 2.5%, 3.5%. This investment banker cost $500,000
Oof.
to render his services. However, because he knew what he was doing and Wes stayed focused on the performance of the company, he made millions more than he'd have made on that original unsolicited offer.
Hmm.
And it didn't happen anyway because he tried doing it himself. So that was what was the $500,000 as a percent of what he ended up making? Well, it was not insignificant, but it was in relationship to what he walked away with and what he wouldn't have been able to walk away with had he not brought in a significant who. But then, good old Wes, brilliant Wes, 2 weeks after selling the company and making all of those millions, his air conditioner at home failed.
Oh.
And Wes, who apparently still hadn't read the E-Myth and now had many more millions at his disposal, said, it's going to be too expensive to fix that. I'll take care of it myself.
Oh no.
So after climbing up the ladder, doing whatever he had to do on the roof, dealing with the AC unit, he found himself lying on his back on the concrete of his driveway. He had fallen from the roof, landed on the back of his head, and cracked his skull wide open.
Oof.
So he ended up spending 11 days in the hospital, some of which were in a coma. He then spent 2 months in bed at home, where he had to relearn how to walk and how to talk. In total, he spent 6 months recovering, getting back to what was in essence normal,
Hmm.
and began hearing this phrase over and over and over again in his head. If you have enough money to solve a problem, then you don't have a problem. Wes had plenty of money to solve that problem. So after almost dying and facing the consequences of doing a how instead of bringing in a who for that AC, and he clearly didn't need to, the concept finally began to sink in. And what is the phrase? We're going to make the mistakes until we learn. The next Christmas, Wes hired a Who to decorate their home for the holidays. Um, and instead of doing his own video production, he hired a Who to do that editing. So there's a track record now he's establishing of hiring Who's because he's got the money to do so. These sound like insignificant decisions, but after almost dying, Wes began to fully value his time and to realize just how much his past habits and limiting perspectives had likely cost him. How many times in the past had he made a decision to take on a how instead of bringing in a who? And how many millions with that extra time that John just talked about having because of a $4 an hour VA, how many millions might he have cost himself? Well, he won't necessarily ever know. But he also has a new appreciation for what the right who's can contribute to his increased success. And that very investment, not cost, that very investment in the right who is also an investment in himself. It opens up possibilities, frees up time, allows him, and it may not, John said earlier, it may not just be focused on business and revenue. It may be focused on time with his kids, which we all wish we had more of looking back. Right.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's Wes.
Well, and the sad part is, I say it's sad, but for me, it's sad. Sometimes it takes someone almost dying to realize that maybe there's someone better to do what they're trying to do. And I think I read in some fancy book somewhere or YouTube video or motivational thing, they said there's only two things that really alter someone's perspective in life or cause wisdom. Number one is time. Can't really speed that up or change that. That's just a matter of living through life and going through your experiences. And the other, just like what Wes experienced, is like a traumatic or like life-threatening situation that, like you said, he continued to now hear this in his head. If you have enough money to solve a problem, then you don't have a problem. But it took him almost dying before he made that switch. You got like I don't want you guys to die to change your lives, right? I
Well, yeah, that's where I was going to go. It's like, I mean, so much of what we're doing is to try. I mean, and in my own case, it's amazing to me. I've met a lot of people now that have gone through cancer and they don't want to talk about it. Well, I don't know. I don't know why I'm different, but that's all I want to do. And it's not for any other reason but to impress upon y'all, don't wait for that traumatic event to start to think differently and to employ. I mean, and again, if where you are right now is a result of the decisions you've made up until now. And if you're not where you want to be, I'm sure there's progress in there. But if you want to up that progress, up those results, then start to get some of this messaging now before something traumatic has to come along to rattle your cage a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and or sometimes you have to read the book a couple of times. Maybe you have to read it and listen to it. Do what you have to do now to have this information sink in, to have this, I almost want to say like way of being, but I don't know if that would be taken too far, way of thinking start to alter and change. I mean, because it will on so many different levels. And Mark, you touched on not just business, but personal. And, there's so many things that we do. And like, for example, like putting up Christmas lights and, cutting the grass, picking up dog poop, whatever it might be, cleaning your house, these things that, and I think it's really just function like of our culture. And what we're picking on Wes, right, in the story, because that's what the book gives us and the context for us to share this information with you guys. But he's not the only person who learned the costliness of how, and he's not the only person that thinks like this. In fact, I think our culture is conditions us, and it's more of like a normal way of thinking to go to how first. And how many times do we talk about it, Mark? Like we're trying to like figure out like how does this get ingrained so deeply in people where the first thing they want to do is figure out like how to do something versus asking for help or finding a who that you could partner with and collaborate with or grow with or expand with or transform your business with. It's our culture. And like, I don't know if I want to go as far as to say like brainwashing. I mean, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy guy, right? But something has happened to help that has conditioned us to avoid the cost. And I say cost because it's not really a cost. If you're a business owner or entrepreneur, you should be looking at everything you do for your business and really through learning this information and picking up this language here in this book, it's not just transforming the business, but your entire life, right? You're investing in more time, more money, more relationships, more freedom of purpose, right? And what you're here to actually do. And as a result, we willingly do all sorts of like this busy work, working outside of our expertise and our passions, because we falsely believe that working harder is the key to success. I say it all the time. Nobody needs a business plan to work harder. Like you don't need a business plan to say if you want to make twice as much money, work twice as many hours. That's just right. That's just working harder. The plan and these conversations and the mindset and the theory. I don't know if theory, because theory is like unproven, right? So I would say this has some track record, but the realizations that come out of this type of thinking, transformative learning, gives you access to a whole new way of like being and moving through the world that makes it easier. Well, I say easier. I'm careful with that word, right? We have to be careful with easier because some people hear easy and they think, well, if it's
Use
whatever, right?
simple.
Yeah, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So simple makes it
Makes
so
it
much more,
simpler.
makes it simpler. More simple or simpler? I like
Take your
simpler,
pick.
right? It makes it simpler for us to go out and do the things that we want to do. So having a great work ethic, although it's
Well,
admirable.
before you go too much further, because I want to
Oh,
tap into
yeah,
some of
go
that
ahead.
there.
Yeah, go ahead before I go too deep.
Brainwashed. Okay, whether you do or don't like that word, um, conditioning is an absolute fact. And from the time, I mean, I made the mistake. I raised three kids, and you're about to have a kid. You're going to get into this. Trust me.
Coming
It's
soon, yeah.
hard not to start telling them, don't do things. I hear you with the dogs already. Stop. Right. And we do the
Yeah.
same thing with our kids. And then we give them over to some time or another in society. And they're again further conditioned. And then they're being conditioned that asking for help or assistance or needing help or assistance is weak
Hmm.
instead of exponentially beneficial. And so the reality of what we're trying to get through to everybody is, look, we know by now what you want. If you're listening to this, we know what you want. The question is, are you going to objectively hear what we're saying, look at what you've done, analyze what's available to you, and make different decisions than you've made in the past? I don't know. If you're not, you're going to remain subjective and emotional and defend the efforts that you've made thus far, the results that you've created, then the timing's just not right. But we want to help you achieve what you want. We know you want freedom. And this evolution of your thinking is what's necessary. Now, is it the absolute only way? No. I mean, you could win the lottery. There's lots of, I don't know, maybe not lots, but there are other ways. But if you want to do something lasting, that's transformational, not just in your life, but in lives around you, the people that you lead, your family, generations of your family. Uh, it's time to start thinking differently.
Well, and to close the loop on that, wrap it up, having a great work ethic is admirable, right? I would say I'm one of the hardest workers. Mark, you work your ass off. There's got to be work, right, to create results. But be careful because there's a difference between being busy, being productive, and you're either in that time and effort economy where you're putting a bunch of time and effort into something, or you're in the results economy, really focused on the results that you're committed to getting out of those activities or those actions that you're taking. Too
Okay.
often,
I'm gonna elaborate there too, because
yeah, please
time
do.
and effort is the same as trading time for money. And
Hmm.
within that space on the left hand side of the cash flow quadrant, even working smarter and focusing on results may not contribute to greater success, because you may have an employer that says, I pay this position $35 an hour. I don't care what you do. You ain't going to get 50. So you got to start to again realize the platform, the environment that you're in is one of the things that may need to change so that you can benefit from shifting from a mindset of time and effort to one of a results economy.
Yeah. Well, and too often people wear their work ethic as a badge of honor. I know I do. I know,
Sometimes you do.
yeah, I like the work smarter, not harder adage, but um, there is a little bit I guess, probably right now with my mindset and where we're at and what we've accomplished, that where I see the most fulfillment there is like when I'm working out or when I'm like doing something to try and enhance my physical being. Really focused on being healthy right this year. So like, when I have a really good workout, that's where it shows up for me the most. And I can remember like when I used to work at the factory many moons ago, and I do twice as much as the person next to me. I would feel good about that. And it's just it's a it's a it's a trap that I think it's easy for people to get into, thinking that the answer is always just to work harder. And in reality, they are mistakenly engaging in hows or how activity that could be more effectively handled by who's to produce more desired results more often than not. And I've got a couple of examples of this recently. Don't have to share it here, but just through doing it and now starting to see it happen for myself, unfold for myself in my business. A lot of times, the people that you enlist as a significant who or partner, or I should say, collaborative partner, they're better than me at the stuff I was trying to do by myself. So one, they love it, right? It's their passion, it's what fulfills them. And two, they're better at it than I am anyway. And to the point we made earlier, now it gives me that time and effort and energy to then refocus back into my top 20% of things that are going to move my vivid vision or big master plan forward, while also giving other people a platform and the fulfillment of doing what their purpose is. So it's a win all the way around when you fully start to like comprehend this and like wrap your head around it. And I'll
As we talk a lot about who, not how, and not enough about the fact that you're a who to somebody as well, and particularly in these roles. So and another way we put that is the more you give, well, actually, you can never give more than you'll get back.
hmm,
Right. So listen, before you close, I'm going to close. We are looking for collaborative partners. We are looking for significant who's within the space of real estate and financial services. And you may say to yourself, I don't want anything to do with those two spaces. Maybe you ought to question that first. Objectively audit our platforms and let's see if there's an alignment between what we're doing and your goal. Because this may be a great way to ultimately fund your passions, especially if your passions ain't making you any money.
Hmm.
So we're looking for collaborative partners. Love to hear from you if you think we might have some interests that align.
If you hung around this long, there was probably something that you liked. So go ahead and like the video. If you heard something here that was impactful to you and you think it might impact someone else, feel free to share it. And if you want to stay up to date and current with this conversation as it continues to unfold, we get a little bit deeper and expand on these concepts and ideas, hit the subscribe button. And then that way, every time we drop a new video, you get notified first and you can be up to date and up to speed as we release more info.
Cool. Talk to you soon.
All right, the next one.